Let's have a chat, shall we? Well, hello there everybody, I'm Photo Dave, this is Toypixx, and in tonight's video, does nostalgia equal manipulation? But before we get into that, be sure that if you're shopping for action figures, you click the link in the video description below. That is an affiliate link, so by clicking that, if you buy something, helps out the channel. I greatly appreciate it. But that link takes you to Entertainment Earth, where you'll get 10% off all in-stock items, and if you spend $59 or more, you'll also get free domestic shipping. But if you're just shopping for pre-orders, be sure to spend $59 or more, type in free ship 59 at checkout, and you'll get free shipping that way. But here's hoping your box doesn't show up like this. It's okay. Wicket was fine. Now, on to the video. This past Monday, I asked the following all over the Toypixx social media. But the reason I asked that is because way back when I checked with everybody and asked if Hasbro didn't have the licenses to create figures based on so many brands that we know and love, would we actually buy Hasbro products? Would they be good enough for our collections? Now, as someone who really digs taking pictures of these things, my goal with every figure purchase I have is that I want to be able to grab that figure off the shelf, or in my case, out of the drawers, and just throw it in front of the camera and get to take tons of pictures, not have to worry about what angle they're at, not have to worry about if the design gets broken up or if there's a weird cut in the articulation, any of that. I just want to take a great figure, put it in front of the camera, be able to swap out whatever I need to swap out, and take awesome pictures, making it do whatever I think the cool photo would be for it to do. That was a weird way to put that, but I think you know what I mean. And using those criteria, I would say, although some figures do slip through the cracks, for the most part, the answer for me on whether or not I'd buy Hasbro figures if they didn't have all the brands that I know and love, at least many of them, would be no. Now, just to be clear, I want to make sure that on the off chance we have a designer watching this video, that I never lay the blame at the feet of the toy designers. It's always the bean counters, the upper management, the C-suite that makes it so we don't get the good stuff. So, if you're a designer out there, this is not at all directed at you. And I know people are going to sit there and say, you're just picking on Hasbro and all that. Here's the deal. I care a lot about the kind of stuff that Hasbro makes as far as their licenses. I care about Star Wars. I care about Marvel. I care about Indiana Jones and Transformers and G.I. Joe. I really give a crap about this stuff. And so when I see that it's not being treated well, I'm less happy. And when it comes to Mattel, as much as I know about Masters of the Universe, I don't care about Masters of the Universe like I do the other stuff. And they have waist cuts. Some look very cool, but they have waist cuts, so we know they're avoiding my collection. And then there's McFarlane Toys, who have a scale that I don't really jibe with, and let's face it, a lot of those figures, they just have very strange proportion and articulation decisions, so I kind of don't talk about them in that way either. The reason that Hasbro gets a lot of hate, they've got the power and the licenses to make great stuff, and they just don't allow the designers to do so. So when it comes to nostalgia, I would say Hasbro uses it for the most part to manipulate collectors. They know that we needs our plastic crack, and they know that they can throw out any low-effort figure they want, and as long as it's a new character for our shelves, or if it's a slight redeco, there are going to be people who are going to pick it up, just because nostalgia. So that's why we end up with so many low-effort figures. And it's quite manipulative. But that said, I do want to go through and talk about some highlights that Hasbro has, either has had for this year or has coming up that I think is important to do, just because I want to make sure that Hasbro execs, like they'd ever watch this, would know what kind of figure I personally, a very self-described picky collector, think that they're doing a great job on. Let's start with Marvel Legends, and I'll try to be objective here, though that's kind of tricky for yours truly when it comes to Legends, because their waists, for the most part, just aren't very good. So, if we're looking at the Captain America that was released earlier this year, the Ultimate Cap, one, he breaks two of my rules. He has a waist cut, and he's also not a 616 character, the 616, not the MCU 616. You know what I mean, the real 616. But overall, he would get a 6 out of 7 on my photo score. He does look pretty good, so I can't be too upset about him. But then when I look at what else Legends is offering, I think, okay, Cosmo looks pretty good, but Cosmo's a Build-A-Figure, and the rest of those figures, I don't think Cosmo's worth building, to be honest. And then when I'm looking ahead, the first appearance Iron Man looks pretty great. I'll stop at a few places to see if I can find him. But the Black Widow, the super articulated one, I will move heaven and earth to find that thing. That thing's sweet. I guess you could make the argument that the Destroyer is kind of cool, even though he doesn't have a waist cut, because, or any kind of waist articulation, because he's a piece of armor or a rope, whatever you want to do with this thing. But he comes in a 2-pack, and frankly, I'm not going to waste my time trying to sell that Thor. And then there's the Doc Ock that came in the Aunt May 2-pack. Very cool figure. He probably would have gotten a 6 out of 7 photo score, but again, he's not 616, and I'm not interested in buying a 2-pack where I have to sell the second figure. The Power Rangers Lightning Collection is mostly reuse, but it's reuse that kind of makes sense, so I don't know necessarily how to judge that. I do know that what really has my attention in that is the remastered figures, or are the remastered figures. I think blue and yellow look good. They come with more hands than normal. They come with plenty of effects pieces. They have their weapons set very differently for all kinds of whatever their weapons do. I'm going to be honest, I don't know Power Rangers that well, but I think they look cool. I think they look good. Fortnite, they never actually come with extra heads or hands so much, so they're out. Then we have the Indiana Jones Adventure series, and they can't seem to get Harrison Ford's likeness right, and I'll be honest, if I'm going to buy an Indiana Jones, it has to look like Harrison Ford. Although they're close in the map room, Indiana Jones, like with that likeness, but that's also the lamest costume they've made, so there's that. Star Wars Black Series, Ewoks. And where nostalgia has really bit me, G.I. Joe Classified, and I'll be honest, I was looking ahead and thinking Scrap Iron's pretty sweet, but I realized I'd only want him for the effects. So the only classified figure I'm really looking forward to now is Rock and Roll, and here's why. Extra hands. So the idea is, if we can divorce ourselves from nostalgia, we will make much better purchases when it comes to our action figure photography. And I do think a lot of you are watching this channel because you're into the figure photography, because that's pretty much what I've based the channel around. Now, there are some stewards of nostalgia, people who take their nostalgic licenses seriously. And those are mostly import companies. We've got Mafex, we've got 3-0, we've got SH Figuarts. These are figures that are phenomenal for photography. Yes, they cost a lot more. But my point being, my argument would be that Hasbro has the resources to give us stuff that's a lot closer to these than what they're giving us. And in the case of the Black Series, where we keep hearing excuse after excuse about how they've had to cut down on articulation, I don't see that going on with SHF. These things have all the articulation you could possibly need, so where does that come from? Is it because the license is so expensive? And if so, again, SHF, I would think, is paying that same license. So, yeah, there are great stewards of nostalgia. I would say people that actually give a crap. So, nostalgia itself, it's like anything else, man. It can be used for evil, but it can also be used for good. Divorcing myself from nostalgia also means that I can dip into new lines that are putting forth some incredible action figures. Lines like Action Force, where I bought Duster way back when and it took me forever to buy a second one, and I'm digging Action Force. I think I'm going to go much deeper in this line. Lines like Plunderlings, and Plunderstrongs, and Plunderlongs. They're so much fun. They're adorable. They're hilarious. They crack me up. That would be what hilarious means, Dave. Lines like Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. They have a character called Tiberius, and fun fact, growing up, my family had 2 dogs named Tibby, so I'm gonna need Tiberius, even though a tiger's kind of the opposite of dogs. And then Animal Warriors of the Kingdom also has a bunch of apes. I've always enjoyed apes. That Thane looks really cool. And of course, we've got the current Kickstarter going for Savage Crucible. Woo! Those are some freaky, awesome looking figures. So yeah, divorcing myself from nostalgia, if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't even pretend to try to check out these other cool lines. So there's that as well. It's good to be a figure collector, and it's good to be able to sit back and think, okay, I'm going to think logically about the kind of figures I want for putting in front of my camera, instead of sitting back and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, they got Rock Python. I've never had a Rock Python before. I need to buy Rock Python, because that's where they're manipulating all of us. 2 things before I get to the final thoughts. 2 things I want to clarify. One, I think that the G.I. Joe Classified line looks fantastic. I love those figures. The problem for me is they don't come with extra heads and hands. Yes, they have a lot of weapons, but we can get 1/12 scale weapons almost anywhere. I'd rather see heads and hands. So for this particular picky collector, they're just not cutting it anymore. And 2, I know that across the pond, Action Force is indeed a nostalgic property. But I grew up in the US, so for me, it feels pretty brand new. Now, let's get to those final thoughts. So, does nostalgia equal manipulation? Yes. Yes, it does. The difference being some companies will use that nostalgia to manipulate us into buying crap, while other companies will take their stewardship of those nostalgic properties seriously and deliver us good stuff. And let's be honest, if it weren't for the fact that companies like Mafex and SH Figuarts were producing product based on those brands that we know and love, we probably wouldn't even give them a second glance. We might not have even heard of them. So with them, they almost, I'm sure, feel they better do a good job, or they're not getting a crazy amount of money from a crazy amount of overseas nut jobs. Now, do me a favor and comment below and let me know what you think of this. What do you think of the whole nostalgia equals manipulation thing? Do you feel like you've been manipulated by Hasbro or other companies in the past? Because I'll be honest, I sure do. And if you're watching this and you've finished it and you've decided this guy's full of crap, here's why, leave that in the comments as well. I'm totally cool with anybody who disagrees with me. I love conversation. That's one of the things I genuinely appreciate about this community, is that everybody has different opinions and they're a blast to check out. And hey, let's be honest, toys are just one part of what we all do. If we were sitting in a bar together, we'd probably find a lot more common ground than things we disagree on, because, well, we're all a little nuts. Otherwise, we wouldn't be collecting these things. So that's what I've got for this one, gang. Until next time, have fun and happy snapping. See ya.